Cordyceps, the nightmare fungus from The Last of Us. But what if its existence was threatened, not by humanity, but by something far worse? The Cryoseep, an alien parasite capable of forging a kingdom of its own. The battle unfolds here on Earth, where humanity has already reached the height of overpopulation. Cordyceps possesses unique passive abilities. Take, for example, Plague of 1,000 Spores. Each spore carries a 100% infection rate, capable of transforming any viable host within mere minutes or hours. Every melee strike doubles this threat, with a 100% infection rate, far deadlier than airborne exposure. And this nightmare does not stop with the living. Cordyceps thrives in human corpses, in airborne spores, and in subterranean mycelial webs, lying dormant for decades, waiting to awaken once disturbed. Next, mycelial overmind. Cordyceps weaves an ever-growing fungal web, spreading through soil, corpses, and abandoned structures. From this network, it gains terrifying traits. Autonutrient generator. Corpses and debris are recycled into nutrient reserves, ensuring survival even when new hosts are scarce. A distributed nervous system links every infected. Disturb one spore, and the horde can be triggered across the entire network. Any enemy or intruder who passes through these infected zones suffers attrition damage and risks passive cordyceps infection. Fungal synapse conversion chemical hijacking grants the infected the mindless trait. They always attack the nearest visible target, ignoring commands, ignoring objectives. Through physical integration, Cordyceps hijacks the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala. The result: undead, immune to morale, unable to panic, rout, or surrender. Their very presence, their screams, their twisted forms, deliver morale devastation to any living opponent. And with neural replacements wired into the mycelial web, each infected reacts to disturbances instantly, as if the entire hive shares one mind. There is also the phenomenon known as fungal bloom. To activate this ability, certain prerequisites must be met. Host: human. Climate preference: humid and enclosed areas. Heat tolerance: 37 degrees Celsius. When these requirements are fulfilled, Cordyceps unleashes its full growth potential. Growth surge: infection and spore spread rates increase by 200% in humid enclosed environments. Sustainable colonies: hosts in these areas resist starvation longer as mycelial networks recycle nutrients. Zone fortification: abandoned enclosed areas rapidly convert into fungal strongholds, with spore husks forming natural barricades. Finally, adaptive strain evolution. This ability grants Cordyceps the trait of relentless. The infected require no rest, no sleep, and no conventional food. There are no upkeep costs beyond the spread of infection itself. Early game strains are defined by high mobility, low durability, and cheap cost. But they degrade rapidly as the fungus consumes host tissue. Starvation accelerates collapse, especially in open, dry, or sunlit areas. If their health reaches zero, the host collapses into a spore husk. These husks recycle biomass, expand the mycelial network, and serve as infection traps. Nothing goes to waste. Yet if a host remains at full health for several days, it can evolve into a mid-game strain. In this static state, tissue degradation slows, allowing the infection to stabilize. In the mid to late stages, the infected become durable, specialized, and devastating. Their metabolism stabilizes, allowing them to last far longer without external feeding. Each specialization grows sharper. Clickers, sensory predators, bloaters, armored tanks, rare but formidable. Shamblers, attrition poisoners, thriving in high humidity zones, equally rare. Now, let's break down how these unique traits clash against the Cryoseep, and how Cryoseep, in turn, counters them. We'll measure this battle across the key domination metrics. Durability and survivability metric. In this metric, both Cordyceps and Cryoseep begin the war with fragile, short-lived hosts. Early game units are weak, yet the way they survive could not be more different. Cordyceps thrives only in humid, enclosed areas. In darkness and moisture, their fungal husks linger, extending life until evolution. But under open skies, sunlight and dryness, their hosts degrade rapidly. Cryoseep, by contrast, leans on regeneration. Its hemocrypt core fuels recovery, and the cryospore itself acts as both shield and infection agent. As battles drag on, Cryoseep's resilience compounds. Time itself becomes their ally. Cordyceps withers outside its comfort zone, but Cryoseep, it keeps coming back, regenerating and freezing out the competition. Offensive power metric. Cordyceps dominates the early game with aggression. Their passive plague of 1,000 spores ensures even a single scratch can spread the infection. If the fungal bloom prerequisites are met, humid enclosed environments, their snowball potential is devastating. Entire cities can fall in days, but this comes at a cost. Unlocking late-game units takes enormous time, and mass production is nearly impossible. Their offense burns hot, then dwindles. Cryoseep doesn't just play the long game, it expands it. By twisting not only humans, but also animals into weapons, Cryoseep floods the late game with predators and titans. And its cryospore freezing effect, that's a direct counter. It halts fungal growth in its tracks. For Cordyceps, speed is survival. The longer the war drags on, the more the Cryoseep will dominate. Intelligence and adaptation metric. In this metric, the divide is absolute. Cordyceps units are shackled by the mindless trait, driven by aggression, not tactics. Their swarm is relentless but clumsy, difficult to command with precision. Cryoseep, however, is something far more terrifying. A superorganism with intelligence distributed across every host, every hive node, every mutation. Its next hosts, enhanced with human-level cognition, serve as living tacticians. This is not instinct against instinct. It is strategy against chaos. Cordyceps rushes blindly into the fray, but Cryoseep, it adapts, it learns, it outsmarts. One parasite is a horde, the other is a mastermind. Mobility and spread metric. Cordyceps begins with unmatched momentum. The runner is fast, relentless, and when paired with plague of 1,000 spores, infection spreads like wildfire, but evolution slows them down. Clickers, shamblers, and bloaters grow stronger, yet lose the speed that gave Cordyceps its opening edge. Cryoseep starts slower. Flesh drudges can't match a runner's pace. But once the mid to late game arrives, the battlefield shifts. Predator-class drudges gain speed. Swarm gnawers leap across buildings. Spore divers descend from the skies. Cryoseep unlocks a new dimension. Air superiority. Cordyceps thrives in the sprint. Cryoseep dominates in the marathon. Resource economy metric. Cordyceps thrives early with plague of 1,000 spores. Every new host means more biomass, more momentum, and once mycelial overmind takes hold, starvation is no longer a concern. Corpses become spore husks, recycling nutrients and ensuring nothing goes to waste. But the fungus is chained to humanity. As hosts dwindle, so too does its economy. Without human bodies to infect, Cordyceps begins to starve. Cryoseep plays a longer, sharper game. Leech Covenant units bleed themselves to generate hemocrypt. Next hosts turn into hidden vaults of biomass. And once cryospore mist blankets the map, every creature, not just humans, becomes fuel for the hive. The longer the war drags on, the richer Cryoseep becomes. Cordyceps wins fast, or it withers. Domain control metric, with fungal bloom. Prerequisites met, Cordyceps fortifies its environment early. Spore husks transform abandoned spaces into fungal strongholds, while mycelial overmine turns every disturbance into a horde alarm. In its chosen terrain, humid, enclosed, shadowed, the fungus reigns supreme. But Cryoseep answers with mist. Cryospore storms spread corruption, overriding Cordyceps' domain inch by inch. The longer an area remains exposed, the faster the takeover. Cordyceps builds fortresses, but Cryoseep builds an empire. Once the frost mist spreads, there is no safe ground left. Day 1. The war begins. Cryoseep makes the first move. A lesion seed spore infects its host, and within just 24 hours, the victim mutates into a flesh drudge. Not only does this spread infection, it immediately fuels the hive's economy. The lesion seed itself absorbs geothermal heat, accelerating the hive's evolution toward phase 2. Cryoseep wastes no time. Its foundation is already being laid, but Cordyceps strikes back even faster. In just 3 to 4 hours, infection takes hold, transforming humans into runners. With the right conditions, urban sprawl, enclosed humidity, endless human hosts, the outbreak snowballs with terrifying speed. For Cordyceps, momentum is everything. If the snowball rolls unchecked in these first days, entire cities will collapse before Cryoseep reaches its next phase. By day 3, the battlefield erupts. Runner packs flood the streets, fast, expendable, mass-produced with every infection. They require no food, no upkeep, just endless forward momentum. With fungal synapse conversion, they become true nightmares, immune to fear, immune to morale shock, but delivering terror to anything still human. And worse, when one runner engages, others swarm like a guerrilla ambush, triggered through the mycelial network. Cryoseep shares that same fearlessness. Morale effects mean nothing to a hive that does not feel, but its frontline hosts, the flesh drudges, are slower, clumsier. Their ossiclaws can carve through fragile runners, yet when outnumbered 2 to 1, they falter. For now, their focus lies not in battle, but in harvesting resources. Cryoseep begins to pivot, summoning the myelophage. These parasites infect new hosts and transform them into next hosts. Unlike the expendable flesh drudge, a next host is durable, cunning, and, most importantly, generates hemocrypt. With every drop, the lesion seed grows closer to phase 2. Next hosts are the hidden dagger. They avoid Cordyceps strongholds, seeding cryospore zones in secret. Each domain planted becomes a foothold, and each foothold a promise. The parasite is here to stay. By day 7, the streets are chaos. Runner swarms harass from every direction, infecting hosts en masse to starve Cryoseep of potential recruits. Every death is not an end, but a beginning. Each fallen runner collapses into a spore husk, spewing spores and expanding Cordyceps' fungal domain. These husks don't just spread spores, they reshape the battlefield. Each patch of growth denies ground to Cryoseep and seeds more opportunities for Cordyceps' infection machine. Yet this comes at a cost. Runners outside the fungal domain degenerate quickly, collapsing from starvation before they evolve. But within the safety of the hive, evolution takes hold. Runners molt into stalkers, stealth predators, unarmored but stronger and far more lethal. Hiding in urban ruins and spore husks, they strike like living landmines, ambushing lone next hosts with terrifying precision. One-on-one, the next host can still prevail, but against a pack of stalkers, even they are torn apart. Yet even in death, the Cryoseep weaponizes sacrifice. A dying next host ruptures into cryoseed, seeding flesh soil on the spot. It spreads corruption fast, though less subtle than planned seeding. And when those stalkers fall, they too leave behind spore husks, constantly spreading spores that threaten to overwrite Cryoseep's corruption within 5 to 10 days. But the tide is shifting. The lesion seed has now evolved into hive phase 2. It spreads spore, corrupting the soil into flesh and releasing hemocrypt aerosol. This residue acts as toxic bait, deadly to Cordyceps units who inhale it, degenerating their tissues. What fuels Cryoseep corrodes all others. Cryoseep retreats next hosts into flesh soil territory, stabilizing its economy. Their strategy is simple: spawn more flesh drudges, harvest biomass, and build strength for the next escalation. By day 30, the battlefield is drenched in spores. With countless runners dead, Cordyceps has expanded its fungal territory, even overriding Cryoseep corruption with endless spore husks. Each husk spawns new runners, evolves old ones into stalkers, and slams the door shut on Cryoseep expansion. Every flesh drudge that strays too far from the flesh soil is ambushed. Some desiccated Cryoseep hosts crystallize into husk chambers, pumping spores into the air. But those too far from the hive are quickly destroyed by the Cordyceps horde. And in the growing fungal domain, evolution surges. Stalkers molt into clickers, elite shock troops clad in fungal armor, their muscles swollen with fungal density. Their metabolism stabilizes, no longer degrading over time. And with echolocation, clickers cannot be ambushed. Darkness, smoke, fog, none of it blinds them. Clickers shred through flesh drudges and even next hosts like paper. But Cryoseep has prepared a countermeasure: the Leech Covenant. Through this brutal ritual, a flesh drudge sacrifices its vitality, burning health into hemocrypt. The transformation creates the predator-class flesh drudge, no longer a laborer, but a living weapon, bulkier, faster, armed with an ossiblade sharp enough to cleave a clicker in half. Predator-class flesh drudges can fight clickers toe-to-toe, one swing to kill a runner or stalker, high senses to resist ambush, and when the end comes, they go berserk, gaining resistance before detonating in a cryo-freeze explosion. The freezing blast is lethal, not through infection, but through cell rupture. Cordyceps may resist disease, but not the cold bite of instant cryogenic death. Runners and stalkers collapse, spores are neutralized, and fungal growth slows. With predator-class flesh drudges carving open the front lines, Cryoseep secures new ground. Behind them, next hosts and labor-class flesh drudges gather resources and enact the Graft Covenant, preparing node chambers. In open territory, away from Cordyceps' fungal domain, the balance shifts. For the first time, the puppeteer fungus finds itself outmatched. By day 60, Cordyceps has solidified its army. Clickers now form the core, reinforced by swarms of runners acting as expendable meat shields. Stalkers linger in the ruins, conserving what little vitality they have left before evolving into more clickers. And now, a new horror enters the battlefield: shamblers. Slow, hulking carriers that spew spore clouds in devastating area attacks. Like clickers, shamblers are fully overtaken by fungal metabolism. They no longer degrade, and with echolocation, they cannot be blinded. Their armored fungal mass shrugs off blows from Cryoseep ossiblades, and when they die, their final act is an explosion of spores, blanketing entire squads in corrosive damage. The pressure is suffocating. Cryoseep is being pushed hard by Cordyceps' expanding front line, but the tide turns as node chambers activate, At last, cryospore mist floods the battlefield. Within this freezing haze, Cordyceps troops degenerate, their fungal tissues ruptured and slowed, and within a week, every patch of mist hardens into flesh soil, reshaping the terrain into Cryoseep's domain. Cordyceps pushes forward, but the air itself betrays them. Clickers stumble, shamblers falter, the frostbite of cryospore eats them alive. Cryoseep adapts too. Flesh drudges ascend into labor predator class, versatile hybrids with the strength of ossiskite weapons, mobility rivaling clickers, and senses sharp enough to foil stalker ambushes. They function as workers and warriors both, holding the front lines while the hive expands. At day 60, the war is no longer fought in the ruins of humanity, but in the contested domains of two parasites, frost and fungus, each rewriting the earth in their own image. Day 120. The battlefield is choking in spores. Cordyceps floods the front lines with shamblers, their toxic clouds suppressing the spread of flesh soil. Cryospore mist can no longer overwrite their fungal domain. Meanwhile, waves of expendable runners are sacrificed into husk chambers, seated around Cryoseep's corruption zones. Each husk tightens the noose, cutting off Cryoseep's expansion paths. Now comes the heaviest weapon yet, the bloater. Urban fortresses accelerate its evolution, massive armored tanks, completely resistant to degradation. Their spore bombs devastate clusters of flesh drudges, and in close combat, even one strike can obliterate Cryoseep infantry. But Cryoseep counters with economy. Cryospore mist spreads into barns and farmland, infecting livestock. These creatures are twisted into biomass generators, harvested by flesh drudges to feed the hive. The parasite no longer relies solely on humans. Its resource engine snowballs out of control. Cryospore mist also corrupts nearby human hosts, spawning waves of new flesh drudges. Many are sacrificed to the leech covenant, trading their health for hemocrypt, sustaining the hive. Labor predator flesh drudges now arrive armed with flescusing sacks, biological grenades bursting with cryospore mist bloater charges into the front line, but leech covenant flesh drudges block the path. They die screaming, but their cryo-freeze detonations cripple the tank unit. Shambler clouds dissipate, fungal growth slows, and one by one, the elite Cordyceps units fall. This is a war of attrition Cordyceps cannot afford. Every fallen bloater or shambler is irreplaceable. Evolution takes years, and human hosts are vanishing. Cryoseep, meanwhile, continues to spawn myelophages, converting the last humans into next hosts, multiplying its hemocrypt reserves. At day 120, the momentum shifts. Cordyceps may still hold territory, but Cryoseep holds the economy, and with it, the future. By day 240, the war reaches a breaking point. Cordyceps, chained to dwindling human hosts, approaches zero growth. Its infection engine sputters. Cryoseep, in contrast, floods the battlefield with new horrors. Swarm gnors, rat beasts the size of dogs, armed with locust mandibles that chew through bone and wood alike. They leap 8 meters, whip tails like clubs, and attack in endless packs. And when they die, they detonate in a storm of cryo-freeze. Air superiority follows. Spore divers darken the skies. Carrion birds with 3-meter wingspans, serrated ossibeaks, and talons sharp enough to pierce steel. They dive bomb targets in coordinated strikes, hunting by scent. Even in death, their cryo-freeze explosions punish Cordyceps' ground forces. Cryoseep now holds mobility dominance. Swarms in the streets, wings in the skies. Every expansion attempt by Cordyceps is crushed, every push delayed. Yet Cordyceps does not yield. In its urban fortress, it layers defenses, shamblers as zone denial, bloaters as frontline tanks and clickers as brutal distractions. Its fungal strongholds still stand, and within, a monstrosity is forming, the Rat King. Cryoseep knows well, to fight a phalanx of bloaters and shamblers in their home domain is suicide. Instead, it pivots. Next hosts construct new node chambers across the middle map, aiming to overwrite Cordyceps' remaining strongholds and seize the contested domain. Cryoseep is gathering biomass, setting the stage for its late-game titans. Cordyceps, meanwhile, clings to its last hope, the Rat King, the fungal behemoth 25 years in the making. The endgame looms. By day 480, the battlefield is set for the endgame. Cryoseep has overwritten the middle map with node chambers, locking Cordyceps into its last urban fortress. But within those ruins, the monster awakens, the Rat King, an unstoppable force, impossibly durable, immune to decay, and cloaked in fungal might. The Rat King is no mere unit, it is a living siege engine. Spore clouds roll off its body like a shambler, suffocating Cryoseep forces. Its colossal strikes tear through biostructures, while its death throes summon clickers and release a final storm of spores. With bloaters and shamblers forming a turtle formation around it, the fungal behemoth advances, but Cryoseep answers with its late-game monsters, the Dread Pouncer, a 200-kilogram stealth predator, armed with 20-centimeter raptor claws and venomous cryospore fangs. It leaps from the shadows, shredding bloaters and shamblers in lightning flanks, while swarm gnawers distract the formation. Then comes the Graze Crush, a beast the size of a bison, armored in ossiplates, tusks sharpened into Aussie horns. With a charge strike, it sends its cryospore-infused necrosis spreads through every wound it inflicts. And towering above them all, Frostmaw, a 1,200-kilogram bear dog juggernaut, standing 2.5 meters tall. Its claws tear fungal armor, its jaws crush with 2,300 psi, and its cryospore breath blankets the Rat King's formation in frost mist. This titan alone can meet the Rat King head-on. The spore divers circle overhead, harassing with dive strikes, softening the giant before Frostmaw engages, and because Cordyceps' army is mindless, they respond only to immediate threats. Their formation collapses, broken apart by flanks and feints. Cryo-freeze detonations erupt across the battlefield as Cryoseep units fall, explosions that ravage even the Rat King's body. One by one, the turtle formation crumbles. This war bleeds both sides dry, but only one parasite can replenish. Cryoseep still spawns swarm gnawers, still grows next hosts, still expands its flesh soil empire. Cordyceps, bound to dwindling human hosts, cannot recover. At day 480, the nightmare fungus meets its end. The Cryoseep claims the earth, not through speed, not through terror, but through inevitability. The frost parasite endures, and domination is absolute. And now, we step back from the battlefield. The war is over, the spores have settled. Let's break it down in the aftermath analysis. Cryoseep opened the war with speed, transforming flesh drudges in just 24 hours and harvesting resources at once. But Cordyceps struck faster, flooding the map with runner swarms. The early snowball was brutal, forcing Cryoseep into retreat and early territorial losses. Leech Covenant flesh drudges became the backbone of Cryoseep's survival, cheap, durable, and powerful enough to hold the line even against mid-game threats. They carried the hive from early defenses all the way into late-game fights against bloaters. By mid-game, the tide began to turn. Cryoseep's economy surged, fueled by Nex hosts and Hemocrypt. And once the cryospore mist came online, every Cordyceps intrusion bled for it, degenerating in the frost haze. Then came the endgame clash. Cordyceps core turtle formation, bloaters, shamblers, and the rat king stood like a fortress. But Cryoseep answered with overwhelming diversity. Swarm gnars as suicide swarms, spore divers controlling the skies, graze crush charges breaking the line, dread pouncers assassinating elites, and frostmaw itself crushing the rat king. And with flesh soil overriding the last Cordyceps domain, its economy hit zero. No hosts, no growth, no future. Cryoseep's endless loop of biomass and infinite unit production sealed the war. The battle between parasite and parasite ends here. Cordyceps, the nightmare fungus of humanity, consumed by something even worse, the Cryoseep. But what about you? If you were playing Cordyceps, what strategy would you use to turn the tide? How would you counter the Cryoseep swarm? Share your tactics and gameplay ideas in the comments below.